Hi everybody, I hope you're all well. Sorry I've been gone for 3 weeks, but I was doing my usual thing of, just taking my time reading and not worrying about numbers and all that lot. And then a week and a half ago, I woke up with the worst cold bug I have had in a long time. So much so, I've still got it. Only a teeny tiny bit though, like I can feel it in my nose, but I don't feel like I need to take anything for it. Yesterday, I still had it a bit in my system, but I was worse than I was today. So I think tomorrow I'll wake up and it'll just be gone, thank God. But it was horrendous. I've spent 4 days in bed, and I had to take 2 days off work. I'm someone, if I take time off work, then I'm like a 1 day, unless I've been like signed off by a doctor, obviously, because that's something else. So to have 2 days off work because of a cold, that was crazy. But it happened. It happened. And so that's why I have been gone for so long, but I am now back, and I'm actually here with two reviews today because I have been reading during obviously those 3 weeks, and so I'm here to catch up on what I have been reading and talk to you about those. So the first one, which this video is dedicated to, is Notre Dame de Paris, aka The Hunchback of Notre Dame, by Victor Hugo. So, my past with Victor Hugo, that sounds very weird to say, but past reading, has only been Les Miserables, which I read, I think, 4 years ago for this channel. You can check out my review of that if you want to. And I really, really loved his writing. I found it so interesting. I knew the story very well from because I've adored the musical since I was a child, thanks to my sister constantly playing it when she was a teenager and such, and so going on and everything, but I hadn't actually read the book, and I found Victor Hugo's writing really, really interesting. But I wanted to read another Victor Hugo, another classic, but from a completely different time of his writing. And Notre Dame de Paris was written 30 years before Les Miserables. So I was like, I think that's a good time to do that. And also, I'd really gone back into the story again because I was constantly listening to the off-Broadway soundtrack, which I will talk about later. And so at the time that I was considering getting another Victor Hugo book, and that's why I got Notre Dame de Paris. But it's been sat on my bookcase for a while, and so it had to go into my jar for books to read, and I'm really glad I got round to it. So what is this book about? This book is about multiple people, and I want to emphasize that multiple people living in Paris, in obviously medieval France, and their lives and how it's centered around the cathedral, Notre Dame Cathedral, this stunning Notre Dame Cathedral. I'd love to visit it one day. I think it's an absolutely beautiful building, and the thing about this book is that when it came out, it was called Notre Dame de Paris, which is what is on the cover of this edition that I have got. However, in later editions, it was changed to The Hunchback of Notre Dame, so therefore making it that Quasimodo is our main character. And he is the Hunchback of Notre Dame, the person who rings the bells in Notre Dame Cathedral, and he hides away from the world. And when he is seen by people, they are horrible to him. He's cursed and all that lot, and they try and beat him, and it's terrible. It's terrible. And he and many other people at the beginning of the book attend a festival that is happening. He's not really allowed to be there, but he attends anyway. And his father, Frollo, who he's quite a sinister story of guy of our story, is there, as well as Phoebus, who is a soldier, There's Grigori. I can't. I'm not sure if it's Gregory or Gregor, because the way in which it's spelled, which I gather is the French for a form of name for Gregory. So I'm going to say Gregory just to make it easier because I don't want to mispronounce. So Gregory. I know saying Gregory is a major mispronouncement of his actual name, but I'm not sure how to say it. So excuse that. I'm going to say Gregory, as well as Gregory, an actor who's performing at the festival, and he's also a poet. He likes music, all this lot, and a woman called Esmeralda, who is a Romani. Other terminology would be gypsy, but I'm only saying that, just using that word just because that is the reference in the book. So, but I will refer to her as being Romani for the rest of this review. And she has travelled with her people to be able to attend the festival, to raise money, all that lot and everything. And her people are hunted often by Frollo and, soldiers and such. And she captures the eye of all four of those men at the festival. And yeah, it's about how their lives are kind of intertwined around the cathedral, and connections and identities and all that kind of stuff. So it's a really interesting story. So the fact that it was originally titled Notre Dame de Paris, which is the cathedral, which is a character in itself, makes more sense to me than calling it the Hunchback of Notre Dame, even though Quasimodo is a very prominent character. Of course he is. And yeah, you could say, yeah, he is the main character. I kind of feel like, because there's so many people and so many things going on, that it's a bit unfair to have Quasimodo be the main character, or at least to me. I don't know why. So I actually prefer the title Notre Dame de Paris. It's kind of like Les Miserables, where you have so many characters in that book, in that story, that if it was to just be renamed Jean Valjean, it's like, well, that's a bit unfair. Just it's not all about him. There's lots of other stuff going on, So I prefer the title Notre Dame de Paris. Now, as I said, this was written 30 years before the book that I know of his writing of. So I wasn't sure what to expect. This was only his fourth novel at the whole course of his career. So, it was like, okay, this is actually an interesting point to focus on, because rather than much later down the line where he is very, very well known, let's take it back. Let's go to a bit where he's established writing for a while, but he hasn't gone through, his giant catalogue, as it were. So I thought that was a pretty good one to pick. And I have to say, I do kind of feel like you can see that it's an earlier work. That doesn't mean that it's bad. It's not bad at all. It's just that there are sections where I'm like, I can recognize him doing this in Les Miserables from remembering back. It is that prominent in my mind. I can remember certain sections and how he constructed things, and it's like, oh, if he's doing the same thing, but Les Mis is a lot tighter. His terminology, his eloquence of tone and such is a lot more robust than in Notre Dame de Paris. So I'm just like, you can see his development, and that's not a bad thing. I've said this before, like how I've referred to first book syndrome, and first book syndrome is not a bad thing. It just means that you have the ability to develop and see that development through time. And so, yeah, I really kind of loved seeing this younger Victor looking at the world. And also the fact that all of his characters, the main characters in this, apart from Frollo, are really young. And so to have it that it is, he's writing this when he is also, young, the young person's perspective on the world and how they see authority, which is a big thing in this. It's so interesting having it written from a young person's perspective about young people dealing with some really horrific things. Now, can I also just take a moment to praise Victor Hugo for the way he writes about the cathedral? I know I keep talking about the cathedral, but the cathedral is monumental to this story, else he wouldn't have put Notre Dame de Paris as the title. The cathedral is a symbol. It is stone. It is solid. It is something that you cannot ignore in this world of characters, and the way that they interact with the cathedral is just stunning. And obviously cathedrals are places of worship. It is a place for God and such, if you believe in those things, and it's also a place of sanctuary if you don't. It's a place of sanctuary for anyone, and so all of the characters in their own very different ways come to interact with this building, whether it be for work, for sanctuary, for God, for questioning why we're here. There are so many different factors here, and ultimately, it's kind of like the cathedral is a place of love. It's a place of hope in this crazy situation in medieval France. And it's just beautiful. The love and respect he gives the building. It is a character in itself. And I adored that. I absolutely adored that about this book. I was just so enthralled by the way he wrote about the structures, the stained glass, everything. I loved it. And yet there's so much going on in this story, with different characters. I mean, here, there, and everywhere, and such. You could argue that at times the cathedral, it's just there in the background. But he makes you know that it's there. That's the thing. He never lets you lose sight of the cathedral. And I just love that amount of respect that he gives it. I can't help it. Now, let's break away from the cathedral. Let's talk about characters, because I am 13 minutes into this already. So characters, I personally, and this is obviously just me from my very first read of this book, I think the story is more about Esmeralda. I do. There's a lot going on with Esmeralda in this book. And the fact that I'm trying to phrase this without giving anything away, no spoilers, but when I'm saying Ashley, I think she's the main character. The fact that she goes through so much, she learns so much. She's only 16. She's 16 in this book. I always imagined her to be older, but that's because I grew up with the Disney version. And even though it's not stated her age, I always thought, oh, she must be at least like 19 or something like that. Because she never came off to me as a 16-year-old girl, but the book version Esmeralda does. No, I'm not saying that she's childish or anything. No, she's not. far from it. But my God, you can see the innocence in her. And at the same, like seconds later, she can become this super strong woman. Then split seconds later, she's having fun. Then split seconds later, she's going through the most horrendous, horrific stuff. It's like she's got so much to her. I just felt like she was so important to this story. I couldn't help but really focus on her when I was reading. Obviously, I was focusing on all the other characters and various, especially in Cathedral, as I said. But there's something about Esmeralda that it just captured me and just would not let go. And that's why on my first read, I feel like Esmeralda is the more prominent. But I wonder if in future reads, I go, no, actually Quasimodo is. Or actually, what about Phoebus? You know, there's a lot of stuff going on in this book. Quasimodo is one of the most heartbreaking characters of Victor Hugo's writing, and I couldn't help but, and I know this is a very, very strange comparison, but to his other book that I've read, Les Miserables, I could not help but compare to Eponine, because of the young, unrequited love who's never seen any light, any goodness in the world until somebody comes along and shows it to them. And they cannot help be drawn to that, but then find that they are not able to have that. All 5 of those things are embodied in Eponine and Quasimodo. I couldn't help but compare. I'm sorry, but I couldn't. I found his story very, very interesting. I loved, obviously, no spoilers, but the revelations about him and Esmeralda as well, wonderful. I adored their friendship. There's so much beauty and innocence and sadness and depth about Quasimodo that it really does pull at your heartstrings, this story with him. And the ending was just, oh my God. Who else we got? So Phoebus, yeah. Phoebus and Gregory, I have to say, even though they are kind of prominent, they're not really. They're kind of elements to be used when they need to be used, but they're not really, I didn't really care about them. I'm going to be honest, it was just the way it was. They were all right, but there wasn't much to them. But I do wonder if it's because they are there to be, I hate to say it, puzzle pieces for the story, to be able to fill in the gaps and everything that Victor needed. And then Frollo's just an evil bastard. I cannot stand the man. But then I suppose you could argue that's good that Victor Hugo had done his job right. I don't know. But three favourites in order were the Cathedral, Esmeralda, and Quasimodo. Because, yeah, I really, really liked them. The actual structuring of the book is very interesting as well, because it starts right at the festival, and then you have sections where it will flip perspectives, or there's sections where it jumps to the past. It's like, why are you doing that now? That I don't understand this. But then as you read through, it's like, oh, this is going to pay off when I go back into the present day. And it does. So it's like, okay, it does make sense for that. I can feel a little bit jarring at first when you go through it, but I did enjoy that rather than like Les Miserables, where it is more linear, but there is a slight bit of jump back to do with Waterloo. But again, it's that thing of seeing structure that she has done in Les Miserables 30 years later, a lot tighter, a lot more solid foundation rather than this kind of looser construct. And I do like the fact that he's got some interesting chapter titles in this one, just some very like odd ones that come through, like where I'm just gonna flick through and see. So oh yeah, so you've got some various Latin ones, you've got various characters. This Will Kill That. That's an interesting title. And there was something, windows which open onto the river. There was one really funny one. It was something like the consequences of following a woman in the night or something like that. Actually, I think I just found it. Where is it? Oh no. I thought I did, oh no. The drawbacks of following a pretty woman. Like, what kind of a title is that? That's that's really funny. But yeah, I think in later years he has gotten better with his chapter titles as well. So overall, I thought it was a very, very interesting story. I really enjoyed it, and he's not afraid to go to dark places in this book. There is some really dark elements in this story. But there are some beautiful ones of humanity, and this book has actually been tagged as being one of the first kind of novel structures, as it were, for romanticism. And I get it. I really do get that. So I'm really glad that I have read it, and yeah, Esmeralda and Quasimodo are going to be hanging around in my heart for a while. So there we go. I'm not going to do a reading because I'm already 21 minutes in. So let's talk about adaptations. Now, of course, I've already mentioned it, so I have to talk about it. The Disney version of Hunchback of Notre Dame. I know this doesn't help that you can't read it, but it does say Hunchback of Notre Dame there. So the version that I was kind of raised with, as it were, I love this film. I, honest to God, feel like this is one of, if not the last, of Disney's golden age of hand-drawn animation. It is absolutely stunning, the artwork, the attention to detail that they have done on especially the cathedral, but especially during the sequence out there, for the song, and the sanctuary scene right near the end of the film, and all the big action stuff at the end. All of that hand-drawn animation is absolutely beautiful, but it doesn't get the attention it deserves. So if you're able to watch it, please watch the Disney Hunchback of Notre Dame for that beautiful artwork. Now, as a book adaptation, we need to remember this is Disney. So it is going to be different. There is going to be a lot of family-friendly stuff. Everyone's going to have a happy ending. Of course, except for the bad guy, who's going to have, a bad ending. But, it's like, yeah, okay. It's a bit, it goes against the book endings and such. It's family friendly, but my God, the animation, the score, Alan Menken, oh my God, it's one of the best Disney scores ever. I will live and die on that hill. Wow, it is stunning. I will put up with like statues that come to life, his friends who were the statues and all that lot, and some stuff which is just not necessary, because I love the rest of that film so much. So apart from those teeny tiny bits that irk me, and yes, it's very family friendly feeling, I do think it is one of the most underrated Disney films that is out there. So please check it out if you want to, and I'll put a trailer in the description below. Now, I mentioned the off-Broadway Hunchback of Notre Dame soundtrack. This is absolutely amazing. There is a recording of it, I think, on YouTube still, and if there is, I will include it in the description, from the theatre, the whole production. It is absolutely amazing. What they did, which was so brilliant when they did this, it's so shame that it was off Broadway and never went to Broadway, because my God, it would have been incredible, is that they took the Disney version, put it on stage, but they brought in elements of the book. So you have things like Frollo's brother, Jean. You have the actual endings for characters from the books. Not all of them, I will say, not all of them, but you have actual book endings. You have certain things that happen in the book. So it was like, hell yes. And it's just, Stephen Schwartz did the lyrics for additional songs and such outside of the Disney soundtrack. And it is just the cast are incredible. The music, the way that they brought the score to into the theatre, it makes me cry. I cannot help but cry when I listen to this score. It is beautiful. So if you're not able to get the Disney film score, just that one, check out the off-Broadway Hunchback of Notre Dame, and if I can find a playlist for that as well, I'll include it in the description below. And then finally, I had to track down the really well-known, famed version of The Hunchback of Notre Dame starring Charles Langdon. I think it was from the 1930s, quite possibly. Let me just see if it says. No, it doesn't. So I don't have the exact year. I'll put that in the description. But I got hold of a copy of it, thanks to Amazon. And yeah, I enjoyed this. This really did capture kind of the darkness of the story. But I was so annoyed that they did so much of the book right, and then they went, okay, we're just going to rewrite the ending to make it happier, because this is a Hollywood film and we can't have them have the endings like they do in the book. So it was like, oh, you literally tripped at the like 10-yard mark. It was just so frustrating. But I have to applaud them for capturing the darkness of the story and for following through and the various events. They did very, very well. Charles Laughton, I've seen him in various other films, but I really, really did like him as Quasimodo. I think he did very well. I think he did a fair job. And his face at the end, it was absolutely heartbreaking. Oh gosh, wow. His performance was great, I have to say. So I really would recommend this version as well. It is in black and white, even though that photo, drawing, should I say, because it's a movie poster, is in colour. It is in black and white, so that's why I was thinking it was like the 1930s or 40s. But I'm not sure the exact year, so I will have to track that down. And there is one other version, I've just remembered, sorry. The BBC Radio 4 version, which is available on Audible. Again, I will put in the description. I'll have a lot of stuff in the description for you today for this video. So it was from 2003, but the actual Audible version, it says released in 2008, but the actual production is from 2003. I like it. I think it's a very interesting take on the story, but as a radio play itself, I thought, well, if it had like a narrator, I think that would make things a bit easier, rather than having every character describe exactly what they're doing. Just have a narrator, like how they did. I hate to compare again Les Miserables, but the Les Miserables version with Roger Allen, the narration on that is absolutely fantastic, and it's exactly what you need for a story like that. So if they did something similar with that version of Hunchback of Notre Dame, I think it would be better. And also, it's kind of a thing with me and Irk. I really like radio plays that incorporate music. I'm not saying you have to have music all the time, but the what music elements it had, I was like, oh, I'll play that just a little longer, just stretch it out a bit more and give it more of a boost in the background of that scene. That would have been amazing, and it didn't. So if they had just extended the music stuff and given it more of a narration, I think it would have been great. But I will include a link to that below as well. And the guy who plays Quasimodo was Daniel in Four Weddings and a Funeral, who's Hugh Grant's deaf brother. So I really like that they had a deaf actor play Quasimodo for the radio play version. I think that was really, really great. So okay, that is absolutely all of the adaptations that I'm going to go through. 4 adaptations to talk about. Wow, I think that's the most I've talked about adaptations on one single subject in a video. So yeah, so those are my thoughts on Notre Dame de Paris by Victor Hugo. A very interesting, immersive story about innocence, love, loss, and medieval France. And I loved every minute of it. So let's, as my usual questions, would I read this again? Yeah, definitely. But as I said, I think I might give it a little bit of time in order to then see how I feel about it going back, and if I'm drawn to any other characters. I don't wonder if it's one of those things that, depending on the time in your life that you read it, you might respond more to a certain character or characters than previously. I don't know. So yeah, I definitely quite like to read it again and see how I feel about it. Would I recommend this to anyone? Yeah, I definitely would. I don't have anything to say, but I would tell a person XYZ, so I think it's just a simple yes. Would I read any more of Victor Hugo? Yes, definitely. That's 2 books from 2 very different periods of his career that I've read, and I've really enjoyed both of them. So yes. So there we go. Those are my thoughts on Notre Dame de Paris. Have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think. Leave a comment in the comments box below. Give a thumbs up, thumbs down, entirely to you decide. And I will be back very shortly with the review of my next read, which is Lady Audley's Secret. So yeah, see you very soon. Bye.